How is it going, MovieBuffs fans? This is Tyler, one of the hosts of the MovieBuffs Podcast. If you are looking for an affordable way to work out, check out Time to Train Fitness. It's a brand of YouTube channels where you can do bar workouts, you can do cycling workouts, you can do HIIT workouts, dumbbell workouts, or you can see product reviews. In the description, you're going to find a link for the main page for Time to Train Fitness, and you can find all the associated brands there to subscribe to and follow those workouts. As I said, it's free, it's affordable. Start today, work on your health, and now let's listen to the episode. Welcome in on another instant reaction episode in the MovieBuffs Podcast. My name is Tyler Valencia. If you've tuned in for this episode, you are most likely a fan of the original Roadhouse, or maybe you just watched the remake that just came out on Amazon and you want to hear a little bit more. Let me start by saying these instant reaction episodes, traditionally, I have made them as spoiler-free and a way to encourage people to go watch a movie. Typically, they're new release movies that are in the theater. And I do that because I want people to go to the theaters. I want people to enjoy the experience of watching in the theaters. And this one is going to break some of that tradition. And I'm kind of showing my hand here in terms of what my feelings are in terms of this remake. But this episode will contain a little more. I'm going to be a little more lenient on the spoiler stuff just because hopefully you've already watched it. And I'm not going to do a breakdown of this remake of Roadhouse. That's also part of it. So by saying all that, I'm trying to also say that I didn't really enjoy the movie. So instant reaction episodes are meant to be positive. I'm a person that typically tries to stay positive and not waste my time on making negative content that attacks movies, attacks shows. There's already plenty of that on the app X. Just go on there and look up Star Wars, look up anything Marvel, and you're going to find tons of stuff just ragging on that content for no reason. Movies that haven't even come out yet, and it's stuff that I can't see myself going down that rabbit hole. So this episode, breaking a little tradition, but I do want to start by saying thank you for listening to this episode. I know there's a lot of movie podcasting options out there. So thank you for tuning in. If you have time, please head over to our YouTube channel and smash that subscribe button. That helps out as we continue to grow that platform. I was a little late with Roadhouse. I had heard of Roadhouse before. I'd seen the movie poster on different streaming apps like Max and on Amazon Prime. And I was a little late to it. I didn't really know much about it. And I decided to watch the trailer recently. And by recently, I mean probably in the last 3 months. I'm not exactly sure when I finally watched it. And I'd heard jokes about it before. And I didn't even know what it was about. I watched the trailer. I was like, oh, okay, just watch it. People talk about it in other movies. They like it. And I think a part of not watching the original till recently was I think I was a little late. Swayze was a little past my time. I'm talking about Patrick Swayze here. He's a little past my time in terms of when I was born. He was just getting, or he was at the peak in terms of Dirty Dancing, Ghost, all those movies. I have never really been into those movies, and watching a movie at the age that I am now in my mid-30s, watching him on screen, I dug it. I really did. I enjoyed Roadhouse, and I think I even used it as an answer for some type of Twitter/X reposting, requoting thing recently in terms of a movie from, is it from the 80s or the 90s? I'm drawing a blank here, and just because I didn't really include that much information about the original 1989. And it's a pretty classic, I'll say, 89 in terms of the style, the way people looked, the way people dressed. And in the original, part of I think of why I liked it was Swayze's really cool, calm demeanor. He was an action star in this without having to use all these fancy gadgets, and not saying don't like that kind of stuff, but he was just cool, calm. He was out there. He was an outcast in the movie, but yet people loved him. They trusted him. And he was just a badass, despite not being the biggest person, which I think a lot of people like to see. Kind of like John Wick, the John Wick movies. He's a badass, and yet he's not the biggest person on screen sometimes. So bringing all this up, I was interested in the remake when I first heard about it, the whole concept of it, but also who was directing it. The director, Doug Liman, he was somebody that I've liked a fair amount of his movies. One of the ones that I'll talk about later, Edge of Tomorrow. And these days, I'm much more of a person that the director is a bigger draw for me. I always see these questions like, who is an actor that no matter what movie they're in, you're going to go see them? And I can't really name many actors per se, but directors, yeah, because I trust the director in that they're going to make a quality movie. Directors are with it from before filming and after every single piece of it. And their process of making movies is often what is what's shown on screen the majority of time. And I say the majority of time just because sometimes there can be some studio influence that really pulls it in a different direction. But seeing that he was the director of it, I was okay. He's done some quality action, and I'll name the rest of it, a lot of the other popular movies he's done later. So I was like, okay, yeah, this could work. I like the concept of it that I'll talk about with the differences in the UFC angle a little bit later. But I was okay, yeah, I'm here for it because I like the original, and I'm not one of those people that is in that boat of Hollywood's just running out of ideas. They can't do remakes, blah, blah, blah. There's been some very popular remakes that have happened over the last few years. And I know I had this conversation recently with my wife about how Jumanji, how they took the original, which was loved. And I remember all the backlash that was coming out about, they're remaking Jumanji, blah, blah, blah. And the two that followed, they were bangers. They were good. They were funny. There was action. And they did so well that they made another one. So I'm not in that boat of, you can't remake blah, blah, blah. And another one of those that I can think of that somebody might laugh at is Solo. I like Solo with the recasting of Han Solo, but I know that I am one of the few. If you're looking for a unique way to stand out with your business cards, check out Moo. Nothing associated with cows or any farm animals, but Moo is always my choice for business cards. It's always something I look for when I'm going to conferences or when I'm going to do any type of business networking. And Moo is always my stop for getting unique business cards that stand out. Check out the link in the description and you will for sure find an option that fits your brand and what you're trying to convey through a business card. There was a little bit of drama surrounding this movie prior to its release on Amazon Prime. And a part of that was because it was released directly to Amazon Prime. The director, he was trying to silently boycott it because, and this was a little quote that I pulled from an article, and it says the facts. I signed up to make a theatrical motion picture for MGM. Amazon bought MGM. Amazon said, make a great film and we will see what happens. I made a great film. And so what happened was he boycotted, I think it was South by Southwest, where this was premiering. And it made the rounds in terms of on all the different apps and articles being written. And I would say that's unfortunate. I'm not going to go too much in that because there is another part of this that I'm going to jump into when I discuss this further with the angle of it, but there was drama with this release, and it just released last Friday. I'm recording this on the 25th of March, and I've yet to see many positive posts about it. I was actually pretty shocked when I went to pull some information from IMDb, and the reviews on there were saying that it's fun, and then, of course, it makes you question, like, did they watch the same movie? Did I watch something else? Because I was getting to that point. I was like, oh my goodness, why did they do this? So I'm starting to get antsy with this episode, so I'm gonna keep this ball rolling here. And let me give you some background information. I'm still gonna give you the cast and crew summary, that kind of stuff with this instant reaction episode. Those are things that you can always expect in these podcast episodes. So let me jump into some of those. As I mentioned, director Doug Liman, he did Edge of Tomorrow, Swingers, American Made, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, The Bourne Identity. So action movies, he can definitely do and do them well. Edge of Tomorrow, that's one of the movies that I always put as a answer for which movie hope that it doesn't have like a greenlit sequel that they hopefully make one. That's always one of the ones that I put. Edge of Tomorrow. It's a surpriser. It's a shocking one that was so good. I know that I've watched it a handful of times. And what he's done with Tom Cruise, they make good movies together. Cast of this, and I'm not putting the whole cast. I'm just putting some of the big names here that are seen through the majority. There are some cameos and actors that you'll see like, oh, I've seen that person in XYZ movie. Jake Gyllenhaal, he plays the main character, Dalton. Daniela Melchiorria, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. She's also Ratcatcher, if you've seen The Suicide Squad, and she's been in a handful of movies. She does have a cameo in the last Guardians of the Galaxy. There's Conor McGregor, who I'll talk about a little bit later on this episode, and Billy Magnuson. He's been in quite a few movies recently, and I'm not sure if he's one of my favorite actors. I'm just going to say that. IMDb summary: ex-UFC fighter Dalton takes a job as a bouncer at a Florida Keys roadhouse, only to discover that this paradise is not all it seems. I'm going to start now talking about the movie. There might be a couple slips here and there about spoilers and whatnot, but the UFC angle. Now, when I was talking about the drama that was surrounding this movie, I thought that this angle they had with the UFC, I thought that, okay, that's different, but that's a smart way to tap into an audience that I don't know if they go to the movies that often. I'm not a big UFC fan. I'm actually not a fan at all. I'm not saying that I'm anti it, but I just don't watch it. I watch plenty of other sports, and I thought, oh, wow, that's good. That could be a unique twist on the movie from the original, but also a good way to get people to go see it in theaters. Like I said, I don't know of the typical UFC fan, what their mindset is, and if they like to go see movies. But I thought, okay, yeah, that's good, smart, different. And the fact that they didn't release it in theaters, I thought that was a missed opportunity there. I think that I've talked about with movies these days, going to theaters, that it takes something special to get people to go to the theaters. With streaming, it's easy access, it's instant access, and people often wait to go to watch a movie because they know it's just going to come out on streaming. So if you have a unique factor about your movie, and I would put this one in this category: 1, popular remake, action remake; 2, UFC angle. Okay, you're going to get potentially people that are going to want to go see it in the theaters, to pay that extra money to go see it. Date night, whatever that is. This could have been one of those movies, in my opinion, and I'll talk about my recommendation later. But I thought that was a unique aspect, that was a missed opportunity with a potential theatrical release. Now, Jake Gyllenhaal as Dalton, I thought that he was not. I thought it was a completely different character. I'll say, as I talked about Patrick Swayze earlier, Swayze was cool, calm, relaxed. He had his rules about how to deal with people, and him being a cooler when things are getting out of hand. And Jake Gyllenhaal, I felt like, had different personalities throughout the film. You didn't really know if he was this quiet. You knew that he had some trouble, but they didn't really fully get into all of it. They have these flashbacks of when he was in the UFC, but they're really quick. I would say the UFC flashback stuff is maybe 30 seconds in total. So they didn't really lean into that. And you know that he can fight based off his background, this whole UFC angle that they went into. But what is it that makes his character unique? Sometimes he seems like Jake Gyllenhaal. I know that when I was thinking about it, sometimes he seemed like that one meme that you always see. I think it was Jake Gyllenhaal when he was on the Jimmy Kimmel Show, or some meme that's always out there where he like blows a kiss. Sometimes I feel like he's that joking person. Sometimes he's trying to be mysterious and quiet. Sometimes he's trying to be standoffish. And those differences in his character they they play against each other because, like I mentioned, the original Dalton with Patrick Swayze, he is this mysterious person that you get that sense throughout the beginning, middle, and end. Jake Gyllenhaal, he's playing a different character in different scenes. And I thought that so the uniqueness of that character, the Dalton character, one of my favorite scenes in the original, and if you've seen that one, you know exactly what I'm talking about, is when he gets to the new roadhouse and he's giving them he's given the employees the rundown, the rules, how to deal with people, rowdy people, the changes, who's cut, who's all that kind of stuff. He's laying down the law and he has full control over the whole bar. And I'm jumping ahead now with some major differences here, but Jake Gyllenhaal's character, he doesn't. He's just there to break up fights. And okay, cool. He's just a fighter. He's not there to help out with the other elements. So then who does handle those things? And what's those storylines? What's those attachments? And so Gyllenhaal as Dalton, I mean, people are going to see it because of him. They're going to see the movie because Jake Gyllenhaal, they like him. Yeah, he's jacked. Yeah, he's ripped. Yeah, you can make a bunch of content off of that. And I've already seen those videos on YouTube, how Jake Gyllenhaal got ready to play, blah, 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 what he did for this workout. And I mean, he's really cutting it. But okay, cool. The story didn't really reflect the character. He couldn't hold it the whole time, the whole calm demeanor. But, that's my perspective on it. That's my take on it. And you can disagree with it, but Swayze crushed it. And I liked that element of it. Some other major differences that I'm going to talk about. And I started off the episode talking about I am a fan of remakes if you do them. If you can make a good remake, well-timed remake, if you put the time and effort into a good story, yeah, I'm going to watch it. I'm not going to have any issues with it. Changes are fine. I think they can be good, especially if they connect to the overall story. There was a lot of different elements in this one that they just didn't hit hard. They didn't hit hard enough. In the original, Dalton, Patrick Swayze's character, his connection to this new town, whether it was the love interest, whether it was the people, they had this connection. And you saw them attempt to do that in several pieces. And I think there were some missed opportunities of that with the bookshop, if you know what I'm talking about, and the little girl and her dad. And it was literally just flashes of what they could have done with that storyline to create a bigger connection to this community. I mean, they tried to plant those seeds from the beginning, talking about, everybody knows everybody's gossip. Everybody knows who does what. And there's a scene in the movie where he's walking around and everybody knows his name already. They had those opportunities, but they kind of went more for the action, and some action scenes were just kind of pointless. If you've already watched it and you can recall the scene on the bridge, just it was almost like a head scratcher. Like, okay, what is this scene here? This was kind of random, but what I'm trying to point to with one of these other changes here, there was one scene in it, and I'm tiptoeing here as I'm trying to phrase it in my mind here, that there was a bar fight scene that happens. And if you've seen the original, there's going to be bar fights. This bar fight happens, and it just took the movie in a complete direction that made it almost unwatchable, where you're just like, oh my goodness, this is hard to watch. It's painful to watch. And so with all of the changes they made, they didn't have a meaningful impact, or they weren't leaned into hard enough that you're like, okay, yeah, this is cool. They did a cool job with remaking this. Example, case in point of how I talked about Jumanji earlier. They made a remake of a beloved movie that was a completely different tone even. And they definitely paid homage to it. There were hints at it. There were callbacks, all this kind of stuff with the remake of Jumanji. But yet it was in a completely different direction that was fun, that people wanted to see, that they enjoyed, and they came back for the sequel. So that is me trying to talk about major differences without spoiling too much there. I'm going to talk about Conor McGregor here for a split second. And like I said, I'm not a fan of USC, not for any negative way, not for any of that stuff. I, I'm not, like I said, an anti-UFC person. If you watch it, cool, great. I'm just not one of those people that's going to pay to watch UFC. And strangely enough, though, I've watched all the documentaries that McGregor has done on Netflix, the movie, the other documentary that came out, and I've watched them multiple times. I can't tell you why I've watched them. I tend to like those sports documentary style stuff where they talk about the training. And more recently, I have not watched as much of the Hard Knocks stuff because Hard Knocks has turned into these storylines that are just trivial. I'll say they're not fun to watch. I like the training stuff. I don't like to know about your, and I'm just joking. There's one instance in my head where I was watching Hard Knocks. I think it was maybe the in-season one for the Colts, and they were doing baby reveals on like the big screen in the stadium. I'm like, what does this have to do with the team? Yeah, okay, they have families outside of it, but I'm like, oh my goodness, this is taking such a bad twist that it's unwatchable. And I don't know if they're doing more. I know that they did another season of the Hard Knocks in season, and I'm going off on a weird tangent here, but I like sports in-season documentaries, training stuff, the ones that were on Showtime about like boxing stuff, even though I won't even watch most of the time the actual fights, but I like to watch the training that they do. And so I've seen these Conor McGregor ones several times, and I know that he is a iconic figure. I know that some people don't like him, and okay, I'm not saying that I love Conor McGregor and obviously I don't go watch the fights, but I like those documentaries. And with his character, I know that he's going to be a draw for it, but it's and you can see I'm fumbling over my words here, that he has this strange Joker smile for 99% of the movie where it's just like, it's weird. It gets to a point where it's just weird. Like, why is he just smiling like this? And he has 1 to 2 normal lines, and when he speaks them, you're like, whoa, okay, that was pretty good. Like, or it seems like he's actually acting, but he has this weird smile that he's walking around with 99% of the time, even when he's fighting. And it just gets to a point where it's comical. Why don't you give him more lines, or maybe just be stoic instead? Because that's kind of the character that the Knox character from the original, that he's the baddie that the boss has in his back pocket that you're supposed to be afraid of because he's just sitting back waiting for his time to go cause havoc. That would be much better than this weird character that they have him play. So it was interesting, and I've already seen people comment about Conor McGregor in this, and I thought that it was a missed opportunity and probably would have been more impactful just having him be just a stoic character that is just sitting back ready to cause havoc, but they made him be some type of playboy, goofy Joker person that it wasn't even fun to watch. Let me talk about a couple trivia options here, and I got a couple tangents I'll go off of with these. And I'm getting close to wrapping up this episode here. Jake Gyllenhaal underwent extensive training with renowned trainer Jason Walsh to prepare for his role as an ex-UFC fighter. The preparation involved a multi-level regimen focused on strength, conditioning, and nutrition, highlighting Gyllenhaal's dedication to the role. Like I said, he's super cut, super in shape, definitely pays off in the times that he does take his shirt off or when he's shirtless. And it's something that if you're taking your significant other for date night, they might enjoy it for those aspects because they're probably not going to enjoy the story. Next one here, the filmmakers sought to innovate how fight scenes are filmed. The team developed a multi-pass sequence to make the brawls look more realistic, marking a departure from traditional fight choreography. I like that kind of stuff, and it is unique in those aspects. I thought that those are definitely the positives of the movie. The fight scenes just prior to the big bar fight scene that was just dumb. But the fight scenes, they do look different, which I always credit to the director. How do they move the camera? How do they utilize the camera in a way that is a part of the fight choreography? Roadhouse was filmed almost entirely in the Dominican Republic, which doubled for the tropical Florida Keys. The choice of location contributed to the film's exotic and dangerous backdrop. I thought that the sets and the scenery, all of it looked cool. I don't even know what the Florida Keys. I've never been to the Keys, but I thought that that was a unique aspect of it. I know earlier I was going to talk about the Roadhouse and some changes with it. I missed this one, and it's reminding me. So I'm taking a step back here. I think 3 steps back here. That was another change with it that I thought was just a missed opportunity. The bar name of it is just called Roadhouse, and it has a joke about it. But I thought that was a missed opportunity with that character, who I'm talking about, the owner of the bar there, with making some connection so the audience feels for her, and yet they make it almost like a joke in terms of why she's hiding some information and what her storyline is. Missed opportunities there. Lastly, music supervisor Randall Poster and director Doug Lehman worked to feature a variety of bands on the Roadhouse stage, aiming to give the music its own narrative within the film. This approach underscores the film's setting in the Florida Keys as it adds to a layer of authenticity to the Roadhouse atmosphere. In the original, the band, it was the lead singer. He was blind, and he was a connection to Patrick Swayze, knew him, and there was those elements of it that just made it more impactful. That he is somebody that you care for. You see him, you know that they have this connection, and it makes him more human. It makes the Dalton character more human while also being mysterious. With having the different bands in it, yeah, it's cool. But what they're trying to say there, with it being making its own narrative within the film, it doesn't come off that way. Music can be cool, but there's, as I talked about before, with this outlandish bar fight scene, it almost makes it like a comedy aspect of it. So that's my opinion on it. My recommendation here, as I wrap this up, the movie does make a strong turn into the unrealistic nature about halfway through. And at that point, I was just thinking, I can't wait for this to end. And it just got worse and worse. Not saying that the concept of a cooler, of a individual that just handles bar fights is not realistic, but it gets to that point where you're just thinking, okay, this is just dumb. And that's my opinion on that. If you are a fan of the original or of UFC, I could see there being some wiggle room to enjoy it. But I would say the normal moviegoer will not enjoy it. My wife did not enjoy it. She knew nothing about Roadhouse in general. I'm trying to now convince her to watch the original, and this did not help for sure. But I don't think that the normal moviegoer will enjoy it. But that's my recommendation. Hopefully you enjoyed this instant reaction episode. I'd love to hear what you think about it. If you can drop a response on any of your favorite social media platforms, that definitely helps. And as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time to tune into the MovieBuffs Podcast. My name is Tyler, and I'll catch you in the next one.